All right, guys, and I am back, and we are on chapter 15. So we are going to dive into this today, and I'm not going to give too much of an introduction because I would imagine that you're not just jumping in on this one, that you have been following this series. So we are getting close to the end, but not quite there. And so we are going to do chapter 15, the Knights of Malta. Since there is so much confusion about Joyner's ties to the Knights of Malta, I feel the need to clarify some things before continuing. Much of the confusion comes in differentiating between the different groups that go by the same or similar names. First, let me emphatically state that Joyner is not now, nor has he ever been, part of the Catholic Knights of Malta. The Catholic order goes by the name, the Sovereign Military Order of the Knights of Malta, or the acronym SMOM. It is the only Catholic order and the only order by that specific name. It is headquartered in Rome, not in Malta. In addition to the Catholic Sovereign Military Order of the Knights of Malta, there is an alliance of 4 mutually recognized non-Catholic orders in Europe. The alliance members have signed a series of agreements of cooperation with the Catholic SMOM and are recognized as legitimate orders. One of these 4 alliance members is the most venerable order of the Hospital of St. John's of Jerusalem, which is often shorter to the Venerable Order of St. John, or the acronym VOSJ. This one is known as the British Order, and Queen Elizabeth II is the head. I would imagine now King Charles is the head of that now. This order is headquartered in Malta. Although the British order is considered Protestant, the Queen's participation in the order requires her obedience to the Pope. Interesting. The other 3 alliance members are the John Knight Order, the Dutch Order, the Swedish Order. Joyner is not part of any of these recognized orders. Now, I spent a long time researching that way back when I was writing this book. Sorry, what is that? That is my hood. So I spent a long time because, like I said, after I left there, I was so damaged spiritually, emotionally, in every way, that I just kept searching because I knew there was more going on there than could scratch the surface. So I researched and researched. So yeah, you could challenge me on this, but you will find, the deeper you dig, that this is correct. And I do have all my my notes here of where I found this information. Of course, I can't give that, in a video, but it is in the book. I am not trying to sell books. I make next to nothing on these books. But I have sold a lot over the years since it came out, and who knows what I'm going to do next, because I'm feeling that need again. I do write fiction, but I have that need again to delve into some of this stuff, not just with Joyner, but the whole bunch of the whole bunch of Dominionists and Anyway, let's continue on. The Catholic order, along with the alliance of the 4 recognized Protestant orders, do not take kindly to others calling themselves Knights of Malta. To prevent people from being taken advantage of by impostors, the alliance has formed a false orders committee headed by historian Guy Stair Sainty. He is considered to be the authority on the history of the recognized orders. Mr. Guy Stair Sainty has stated unequivocally that anyone belonging to an order outside the officially recognized alliance of 4 orders detailed above is part of an unrecognized, self-styled order. Therefore, the group that Rick Joyner belongs to is an unrecognized, self-styled order. Joyner's group goes by the name Knights Hospitallers of the Sovereign Order of St. John of Jerusalem, Knights of Malta. there's a mouthful for you. The ecumenical order. I'm sorry about my cat. I gave him treats, thinking that would settle him down, but he's upset about something. He's got food, water, toys, wanting attention, I guess, which I'll give to him when I'm done. All right, so yeah, he is not part of any of the recognized orders. That is a fact. He is part of a self-styled order, and these guys have, well, I'll get into it. Joyner's group goes by the name, and we just said that. Okay, the ecumenical order. This is known as an ecumenical order, which means that all churches are welcome, I guess, to his order. Of course, because it's all about money, isn't it? Yeah, the Prince Grand Master, is Nicholas F.S. I used to be able to pronounce his name. Papanakolu? Really, I used to be able to pronounce that. Anyway, incidentally, this guy, Papanakolu, is also a board member of Joyner's highly Dominionist Oak Initiative. I find it more than a little intriguing that according to his order's website, Papanakolu holds senior rank in the Swedish order of the Amaranth. Some of these words I haven't looked at in a very long time. This is a fraternal organization composed of master Masons and their duly qualified female relatives. Evidently, Joyner has no problem with allowing a master Mason on the board of his Oak Initiative, nor does he have a problem submitting to one as his Prince Grand Master, despite having said the following: as a Christian, I'm deeply alarmed by everything I've studied about the Masons. I do not know how any Christians can make the basic vow required for entry to the Masons. I have not, nor would I ever be part of any secret society or one that has secret rituals. Rick Joyner. So that in a nutshell right there is what is so dangerous about that whole movement, is that he will lie to you right to your face. He hangs out with Masons. Let me tell you, there is, and he's not part of any secret societies. Well, what about being initiated into this Luciferian light? What about that? What about, how did he get access to Hitler's bunker? How did he get access to the gun Hitler supposedly killed himself with? I don't believe that, because everybody knows Hitler survived past the war and was in Argentina. That's been proven. So the whole bunch of thing is lies. But yeah, the guy that's over him in this self-styled Knights of Malta group is a master Mason. And he's also holds senior rank in the Swedish order of the Amaranth, which is a fraternal organization composed of Master Masons. So, yeah, sure. Tell us another one, Joyner. Oddly enough, Papanakolu was previously the Grand Master of a different self-styled group, but was disassociated for undisclosed reasons. Their website states that it was for grave reasons already explained in detail to him by correspondence after due warning and request for his resignation. The name of the group he was disassociated from is called the Sovereign Hospitaller Order of St. John of Jerusalem Knights of Malta. They list Papanakolu as being their Prince Grand Master from 2006 until he was dissociated in 2011. For what they themselves called grave reasons that had been explained to him, and they asked for his resignation, which he obviously gave, or maybe he was just given the big heave-ho, who knows. Then suddenly another group appears on the scene, calling themselves the Knights Hospitallers of the Sovereign Order of St. John of Jerusalem Knights of Malta, the Ecumenical Order. This group lists Papanakolu as being their Prince Grand Master from 2006 to the present. Now, how on earth could he have been Prince Grand Master of both groups? He couldn't, and quite frankly, he wasn't. I have a good I love a good mystery, and the fact that both groups shared almost identical list of past Grand Masters. Um, I may have to just pause this for a moment and see about my cat, because I can't concentrate, and so you probably can't either. But yeah, I think I'm just going to do that. You won't even know I'm gone. Really, you won't. Okay, I'm back. I gave him some more treats. Hopefully that will keep him quiet for a little bit. Anyway, and we will continue here. And you might think, because I know I'm going into a lot of detail here, but that's because Joyner tried to make it seem like this group was, legit and all that. And that's all we heard about is this Knights of Malta. And to find out, when you look into it a little deeper, it's quite interesting. So, yeah, we were talking about, and where were we here? Yeah, so this Pampano Kolu, and I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing his name right. I used to know how to pronounce it. They both of these self-styled groups had him as their Grand Master. He was kicked out of one group, but he immediately looks like he became Grand Master of another group by very, very similar name. And he claims that he's been part of that group since 2000 and when did he get ousted? Yeah, he was disassociated from that group in 2006. In 2006, and he was dissociated in 2011. Okay, then suddenly another group appears on the scene, calling themselves the Knights Hospitaller of the Sovereign Order of St. John's of Jerusalem, Knights of Malta, the Ecumenical Order. This group lists Papanokolu as being their Prince Grand Master from 2006 to the present. Now, how on earth could he have been Grand Master of both groups? He couldn't, and quite frankly, he wasn't. I love a good mystery, and the fact that both groups shared an almost identical list of past Grand Masters provided me with one. As it turns out, this mystery had a very simple explanation. Papanokolu formed his own group once he was ousted and took on the history of the group he was ousted from. Imagine the nerve. He's ousted from one group. He just steals the name and starts his own group and uses their history and everything else to give his new group legitimacy. Unbelievable. So Papanokolu's new group, of which Joyner is a part, this new group, he is a part of that group, is not a recognized order. But then the group Papanokolu was ousted from was not a recognized order either. Neither group has observer status in the UN, like recognized Knights of Malta groups, nor are they considered a sovereign subject of international law. So where did they come from, and why are they calling themselves the Knights of Malta? Well, here is where it gets really interesting. Both the order that Papanokolu was ousted from and the order he now heads as Prince Grand Master are continuations of another order that originated with a man named Charles Mishel. However, don't go looking for Michel's name in either group's list of past Grand Masters. They have conveniently written him out of their history. Now, why do you suppose they would want to go and do a thing like that? Well, let's take a closer look at Mishel and see why they might not want to make that connection known. Mishel was a con man, if ever there was one. He was not only convicted of trafficking narcotics, but he was also convicted of selling memberships and collecting dues for various bogus organizations. He headed a false Knights of Malta group headquartered in Shikshini, New York, which earned his group the irreverent nickname, the Shikshini Knights. Mishel was an advisor. Let's listen to this. Mishel was an advisor to Hitler's aide, Ernst Handfuls. I can't pronounce that name. I used to be able to pronounce these names. I don't know what's happened to me, but I guess I haven't looked at them for a long time. And many of his leaders were anti-Semites who worked with the quasi-Nazi Liberty Lobby. The Shikshini Knights were, among other things, an intelligence front. An intelligence front. Keep that in mind. It became an extreme cabal of right-wing military and intelligence men, plus a gaggle of Russian nobles who had lost their land and possibly their minds after the Russian Revolution of 1917. Mishel called this order the Sovereign Order of St. John of Jerusalem, Knights of Malta, and claimed they were part of the real Knights of Malta via the Russian line of succession. Of course, they were nothing of the sort. Allow me to explain. In 1911, a semi-Masonic organization which emerged from the Orange Lodges registered themselves as a corporation in the state of New Jersey under the name Knights of Malta. 1 year later, the group was already defunct. Mishel needed a believable history for his bogus group, so naturally he invented one. He claimed his order was a continuation of the Orange Lodge group, and he stole their history. He then embellished it by mimicking the foundation of the Paris group, complete with its Russian hereditary commanders. The truth is, Mishel's group, the Sovereign Order of St. John's of Jerusalem, Knights of Malta, was not actually incorporated until August 18th, 1956 in Dover, Delaware, by 3 women. Mishel, in all likelihood, bought it as an empty shell corporation because it was not until July 30th, 1960 that he and his colleagues were added as officers of the corporation. So, if we are to believe Mishel's bogus history of his order being active in America since the turn of the century, we also have to believe that 3 women ran the Knights of Malta in America for 4 years as its chief officers. Yeah. Rick Joyner's Knights of Malta group, headed by Papanikolaou, descended from the Mishel order. That's the order that Rick Joyner's descended from. He can say anything he wants, but I have researched the crap out of this. All right. Yeah, let me explain how Rick Joyner's Knights of Malta group, headed by Papanikolaou, descended from the Mishel order. Let me explain how. Robert Paterno Costello, who had been the Grand Master of the Mishel Order from 1979 to 1992, left to become Grand Master of his own order. Frendo Cumbo, boy, I remember that name, was a Grand Prior in Costello's order, and in the mid to late 1990s left to form his own order, appointing himself Grand Master. It was from this order that Papanikolaou was disassociated. Undeterred, however, he now started his own self-styled group, presumably copying the history from the group he left. And I do have a little chart here, but it's pretty hard to show that. But yeah, that is the group that Rick Joyner is part of. This group has a long history of, all sorts of unsavory things. So now, not only is Papanikolaou the head of his own self-styled order, but he is also founder of World Public Forum's Dialogue of Civilizations. Participants of this forum strive to establish a new order based on mutual respect and opinion exchange across national borders. Papanikolaou formed the World Public Forum in partnership with one of President Vladimir Putin's closest political allies, Vladimir Yakunin. This is deeply alarming. Papanikolaou is not only tied to a political ally of Vladimir Putin, but also with Joyner, who has openly called for a military coup in America. Then, to make matters worse, both Papanikolaou and Joyner are tied with General Jerry Boykin, former Undersecretary of Defense, implicated in torture and illegal covert operations, the same Jerry Boykin who has been touring American churches trying to raise up an end-time army in a worldwide theocratic government. Yikes, what a mix. So, essentially, to boil it down, Joyner and his ilk, and believe me, there are more of them than you could even possibly imagine, It has infiltrated just about every church denomination. And they want a new world order too, but they want to be the ones in charge. You know, a theocracy with them standing in as God. Many of Papanokolu's self-styled orders are aligned in one way or another with Joyner. The group's Grand Chancellor, General Jerry Boykin, is a board member of Joyner's Oak Initiative. George Parrott, an order chaplain, is the head of MorningStar Missions. Members William Nesmith, Randall Cutter, and Randall White are all pastors of churches directly aligned under MorningStar, and there are others, lots of others. Papanokolu's group is made up of many priories. A priory is simply a group of men or women under religious vows headed by a prior. The head commander of a priory is known as the Grand Prior. The Grand Prior for the Carolinas is Rick Joyner. But remember, this is a self-styled group. So he can prance around and confer whatever titles he wants on himself, right? When you know, you have your own group like that, your own secret group, you can just, you know, dress up in robes and prance around and confer titles on one another. And that's what they did. So in 2011, the Knights and Dames under Joyner's Carolina Priory invited all the other priories belonging to the same self-styled group to a solemn international investiture. An investiture is a process by which persons admitted to the order as probationary candidates take their vows, receive their robes, and are officially received as members. This particular investiture, you know what I mean, was held in the ballroom of the Heritage Grand Hotel in Fort Mill, South Carolina. MorningStar purchased the 501-room Heritage Hotel along with the unfinished 21-story tower and 52 acres of adjoining land in 2004. This site was the former home of Jim Bakker's Heritage USA and PTL Ministries. Renovations have been extensive and donations ongoing. Heritage Grand Hotel is advertised as a conference center, retreat, and location for weddings. In other words, it's a business. The investiture was followed by dinner and a ball, followed by drinks and fellowship. The gala was a formal event, complete with tuxedos, evening gowns, a cigar tent, and of course, a cash bar for cocktails. The cost of the three-day event for meals and a standard room was $399. Now remember, this was a long time ago. The cost of the three-day event for meals and a standard room was $399 payable to Heritage International Ministries, which stands for HIM, H-I-M. Remember, these are, as Rick insists, Christians who have risked their very life for the gospel, those of impeccable moral character, ready to defend the faith at all costs. If that is so, then why do they feel the need to dress in shiny satin robes, play with swords, smoke cigars, drink cocktails, and prance about conferring titles of honor on one another? Is that how they honor Christ? By honoring themselves? But when you do a charitable, this is Matthew 6, 3-4, but when you do a charitable deed, do not let your left hand know what your right hand is doing, that your charitable deed may be in secret, and that your Father who sees in secret will himself reward you openly. Do these titles make them more spiritual, more committed? Do they believe their charitable deed somehow makes God indebted to them? These are mere titles of honor that exalt men and give occasion to pride. They have nothing to do with God. Regardless, titles, accolades are paramount to this group. Nicholas Papanikolu who incorrectly styles themselves as Baron Nicholas Papanikolu, purchased the Scottish feudal barony of Findlaystone Maxwell. Why would he want to purchase a title? Well, I can think of several reasons, but none of them are good. Speaking of titles of honor, I wish to deviate slightly and address this matter of academic dishonesty among this group. Just so there is no misunderstanding, I want to state at the outset that I am all for one pursuing higher education. I have 3 degrees myself, 2 undergraduates and a master's degree. I am not against education in any way, shape, or form. However, I am very much against diploma mills who exchange a worthless vanity degree for money. How do you suppose Rick Joyner, with only a grade 12 equivalency diploma, obtained a PhD in such short order? I'm not trying to infer that he lacks intelligence, as that is certainly not the case. However, he most definitely has not earned a doctorate degree. A bachelor's degree takes 4 years to complete. A master's degree generally takes 2 to 3 years, sometimes longer. Generally, a PhD will take 2 to 6 years to complete. Not always, but that's a good general rule. That means that to obtain a real, earned, and accredited PhD recognized by the academic community, you would need to complete a minimum of 8 years of post-secondary education to have a doctorate. A minimum. For some reason, many want the academic honor and prestige of having a PhD, but they don't want the academic work, so they turn to diploma mills. This is rampant among charismatic pastors, and if you take the time to investigate, you'll find that the vast majority of big-name ministers who claim to have a PhD have purchased and not earned their degrees. Rick Joyner's doctoral degree, along with that of his missions director, George Parrott, came from the North Carolina College of Theology. The college claims to be accredited, but so what? I could crawl into my oven and call myself a biscuit, but it wouldn't make it so. They claim accreditation by the International Accrediting Association and Trans World Accrediting Association International. In all honesty, they might as well be accredited by the Phantom Bigfoot and the Loch Ness Monster. Neither of these accreditation agencies is recognized by the U.S. Department of Education as a bona fide accrediting agency. Furthermore, both these accrediting agencies are well known for issuing accreditation to diploma mills. Yeah. The Accrediting Commission International, Inc. of Beebe, Arkansas, is run by a non-Trinitarian Pentecostal preacher by the name of Dr. John Mishel, holder of another diploma mill doctorate. Dr. Mishel got his PhD from Toledo Bible College and Seminary, which had to be rebranded when it was run out of Ohio by the authorities. ACI is also a rebranding of the International Accrediting Commission, which was run out of Missouri after a sting operation. However, aside from being accredited by bogus agencies, here is where it gets ridiculous. The doctoral program for the North Carolina College of Theology requires only a GED, a grade 12 equivalency, as a master's candidate in English and a holder of 2 earned bachelor degrees. I know full well no accredited school will ever let someone enter a doctoral program with a GED. You need to have the preliminary degrees and a very high grade point average, period. Not so at the North Carolina College of Theology. No, all you need there is experience. Yes, experience. Well, experience and money. Let's not forget the money. Not only is Joyner's own degree false, but he is issuing bogus degrees through the university. His degrees are granted through the same degree mill that his own bogus doctoral degree came from. In fact, it states right on MorningStar's website that their bachelor degrees are awarded by the North Carolina College of Theology. Oh, and get this, you can obtain a bachelor degree after just 1 year. Wow! A bachelor degree after only 1 year. I mean, come on, that's funny. Yeah, that's right. Why slave away for 4 years for a real degree when you can go to MorningStar University and be granted a fake degree from a diploma mill after just 1 year? Yeah, all you need is 1 short year and money. Don't forget the money. I'm in no way trying to demean those who have not obtained a degree, nor am I insinuating that those who have a degree are any more qualified to be ministers of the gospel than those who do not. What I am saying is that claiming you have attained a certain level of educational accomplishment when clearly you have not is unconscionable and fraudulent. But then everything about that ministry is. Now, getting back to our main topic, let's look at some of the charities Pompano Kolu Order claims to raise money for. Oh, you're going to love this. Most are headed by members of the order themselves. Well, of course they are. Why do you think they had to create a self-styled group to begin with? Yeah, you'll see what they're doing here. Yeah. Most are headed by members of the order themselves. Papanokolu's group, the Knights Hospitallers of the Sovereign Order of St. John's of Jerusalem, Knights of Malta, the Ecumenical Order. I mean, how pretentious is that? Anyway, is registered by Papanokolu as a 501c3 tax-exempt religious organization in Texas under the name Hospitallers. The address for the group is listed as 2104 Underwood Road, La Porte, Texas. Also registered at that same address is a 501c3 organization registered as New Life Christian Church. This church is headed by Archbishop Gregory Hawley, who coincidentally enough is the Grand Prelate USA for Papanokolu's group. However, there's more. Gregory Hawley runs another 501c3 tax-exempt organization registered to the same address called Independent Christian Churches International. On the organization's website, Hawley claims to have obtained 10,300 ministers worldwide. According to Hawley, the organization's mission is to provide relationship, accreditation, and strategically relevant information for ministers and business leaders all across all Christian faiths through its mission and marketplace initiatives. In case we had any doubt about what he is talking about, he further states that these initiatives are for the release of the kingdom mandates of God's rule and order. He then assures us that this fellowship is founded upon the apostles' leadership of the uninterrupted transmission of spiritual authority from the apostles of the New Testament church to the present day. Bull crap. Bull. It's not. That's the most ridiculous thing I've ever seen in my life. But that is what they claim. It is what they claim. This belief is called apostolic succession, the belief that the apostles passed on their authority in succession to others who passed it on to others and so forth. It is not found in Scripture and is considered heresy. But what's new for that group? What this charity is doing is ordaining ministers and training them in Dominionist agenda, an agenda whose ultimate aim is the installation of a theocratic rule in America and beyond. We are not finished yet, though. There is still another 501c3 registered to this location. This one is called Moms Against Hunger and is reportedly run by Gregory Hawley's wife, Gayla. Both of them are active in the group, and not surprisingly, both these charities, Moms Against Hunger and Independent Christian Churches International, are charities that Papanokolu's group supports. However, there are other charities that the group supports, which tie directly back to members of the group itself as well. One is a 501c3 tax-exempt religious charity called Generations of Virtue. This organization is dedicated to promoting sexual wholeness and integrity. According to their website, one of these mandates is to teach families how to transform culture. While this is indeed a worthy cause, their website seems to be more geared towards selling books, purity rings, and collecting donations than anything else. This is run by Kay and Julie Hiramin, who are also members under Papanokolu. The contact address for Generations of Virtue is P.O. Box 62253, Colorado Springs, Colorado. But again, that is not the only 501c3 that shares the same address. Humanitarian International Service Group, now Sustainable Communities Worldwide, is also listed under this address and is likewise headed by Kay and Julie Hiramin. Now, it's quite evident why these people set this up this way. They set themselves up in this group. Joyner was just constantly saying how, oh, it's just the purists. It's the people that have dedicated the most and sacrificed the most. And they're of the highest character and blah, 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 on and on and on about Knights of Malta, and it was a false group set up fraudulently. And they have all these organizations, 501c3s, they're laundering money. It doesn't take a genius to look at that and see what they're doing. They're laundering money. Exactly like Joyner took in I don't know how much, but a lot, because he was traveling and ministering around the world, taking in contributions for this prophetic retreat. And what it is his own 13,000 square foot home and a guest house and some other houses that belong to ministry members, you know, high level staff and so forth. Yeah. And then he just took all that land that he bought and he sold it off. Must be nice. Actually, it wouldn't be nice. I wouldn't want to be him. All right. Okay, so yeah. So a lot of these groups that I looked into, they all share the same P.O. boxes or the same address or whatever. They've got several charities running in and out. And, you know, this charity will give to this charity to launder their money and so forth. You know what I'm saying? It's all a great big, yeah. Okay. So let's push through and look at two more charities that Pompanakolu's self-styled group raises money for. Hydrating Humanity is run by Morningstar's Matt Peterson. Peterson was there when I was part of Morningstar, and he is, by his own admission, a former CIA agent. I'm not so sure about the former. He now heads Morningstar Fellowship in Winston-Salem, North Carolina, and is founder of Zao Water. Oddly enough, there is a website registered to Morningstar ministered called Zao Water. On their website, it states that Zao provides wells and hygiene training to transform communities by providing safe water, education, and hope for people in developing nations. Zao is the spring wells and hygiene training arm for Morningstar Ministries and is part of Morningstar Missions. Yeah, if they're doing any of that. Zao is not registered as a 501c3 tax-exempt charity, at least not under its own name. Now, this was when I researched this. I don't know what's happened with that since. The director is listed as George Parrott, and his executive assistant is listed as his wife, Anna Parrott. Again, both George and Anna Parrott are involved in Pompanakolu's Knights of Malta group. However, it does not appear that the Knights of Malta supports Zao Water, but rather Hydrating Humanity, a 501c3 charity that seems to serve the same function and have the same goals as Zao Water. The director is listed as Matt Peterson and Pat Selvey, and is listed as the international director. At any rate, the charity ties back to Morningstar. Okay, take a deep breath and grab a piece of chocolate to power your way through the last one. You might even want to go get yourself a coffee. You'll need to be awake for this. All right, well, I'm going to have a sip of my drink here. Yeah, yummy. All right. So, you ready? I don't know what's coming next. I pretend like I know. It's my book, but I haven't read it for a long time. Okay. Yeah. So here we go. Let's take a look at General Boykin's Kingdom Warriors, an organization that urges Christians to become warriors in God's kingdom. Kingdom Warriors has been active on the internet since 2008. The year listed for the organization is, the first contact information listed for the organization is 439 Westwood Shopping Center, PMB, number 134, Fayetteville, North Carolina, 28314. This address tracks to a UPS store run by Army veteran Debbie Milburn just outside the Fort Bragg military base. However, the number to reach the organization begins with a 303 area code, which is Colorado. Later contact information has the organization listed at 373 Inverness Parkway, Suite 100, Englewood, Colorado. Interestingly enough, this is a 15,383 square foot office. That is 1,429 square meters for my Canadian and European readers. This is a whole lot of space for an organization which consists of speaking engagements, selling books, and soliciting donations. Of course, no office would be complete without 6 drive-in docks for shipping and receiving. Oh, and look, it is conveniently located with access to I-25, E-470, and C-470, all major highways, not to mention the Denver International Airport. Why does someone whose sole ministry is speaking need that much office space? Does he bowl in there? I don't have concrete evidence of anything, but I am sure you'll agree that it's very odd. As of this printing, Boykin has no mission statement on his organization's website. He openly solicits donation, but fails to tell potential donors what the money is being used for. I presume he is being given an honorarium for speaking engagements. I am also sure he peddles his books at these events. His expenses must be covered. So what exactly is the public donating toward? GuideStar is an information service specializing in reporting on U.S. nonprofit companies. On their website, you can see a copy of Boykin's Kingdom Warriors 990 form filed with the Internal Revenue Service for years 2011 to 2013. On Form 990, Part 3, 1, they state, the organization is dedicated to assisting military personnel with spiritual guidance and support to spread the New Testament and the teachings of Jesus Christ. However, in Part 3, number 4, he states that the prime activity was the identification of qualified speakers and also sponsoring faith-based seminars and various seminars at churches throughout the nation. This was to encourage prayer for our nation, the United States of America. I think this guy's a little confused about what he does. Don't you think so? Anyway, now, I know I don't need to point this out to you, especially after that cup of coffee you just had, but these two statements do not match. Furthermore, if you look into what he actually spoke about at these speaking engagements, you will soon find that it doesn't line up with either statement. On April 10th, 2008, Boykin spoke at Epicenter, a conference in Israel hosted by Joel C. Rosenberg. The message was called, appropriately enough, Inside the Revolution. His message was about the mission of Islam and how to stop Islamic terrorism. In fact, if you investigate, you will find all of his messages are about the threat of Islam and raising up a Christian army to fight it. Yeah, some of these people just need, and this is a direct quote by him, some of these people we just need to fight and kill. Some of these people we just need to kill. That's what he's saying. It is really no different than when the Israelites crossed the Jordan River and the Lord said, kill them, kill them, kill them all. Don't even leave their animals to corrupt you in the future. There are some we are going to meet on the battlefield and we are going to have to kill them. But that's not the ultimate solution. The ultimate solution is the gospel. Yeah, I'm sure they're going to be real receptive to the gospel with a gun to their head. So Boykin wants to take the gospel to the Muslims, and as Christians, we certainly want everyone to know and follow Christ. However, that doesn't work. Boykin says if that doesn't work, Boykin says we just need to kill them. Now, we already know that Boykin does not want to take the real gospel to the Muslims. He wants to take the Dominionist gospel, and that is something very, very different. When asked by an interviewer how Boykin sees his role in regards to the gospel today and with regards to our republic, Boykin stated the following. I took an oath in December of 1970 to support and defend the Constitution of the United States against all enemies, foreign and domestic. I believe that the 36 and a half years I spent in uniform was nothing but preparation for the real battle we are in today. A godly army. I believe that my role is, Okay. And I believe my role is to raise up an army, a godly army and a righteous army to fight the spiritual battle. Our weapons are not carnal, but I believe that what God has prepared me to do and has now called me to do is to raise up an army of godly men and women that understand the concept of spiritual warfare and are willing to get in the battle. Now, that sounds good. It sounds like, well, he's just talking about spiritual warfare. Is he? No. If you see the body of what he has spoken about, he's definitely not talking about a spiritual army. any more than Rick Joyner was talking about a spiritual army. Remember, he said we'd have to assist God in killing them. Assist God in killing them. All right. So, according to Boykin, he's been given a divine mission to raise up an army, but the weapons of his warfare are not carnal, or so he claims. This is a perfect example of the doublespeak Dominionists engage in to mask their agenda. If he states that some of them we just need to kill, then how can he be talking about spiritual weapons? Right? In a speech he gave on behalf of the Family Research Council to the Wall Builders Pro-Family Legislators Conference, he stated that the Lord is a warrior. And in Revelation 19, it says when he comes back, he's coming back as what? A warrior, a mighty warrior, leading a mighty army, riding a white horse with a blood-stained white robe. I believe that blood on the robe is the blood of the enemies, because he's coming back as a warrior carrying a sword. And I believe now, I've checked this out, I believe that the sword he'll be carrying when he comes back is an AR-15. General Jerry Boykin. What a misguided man. Anyway. Now, I want you to, it's him continued. Now, I want you to think about this. Where did the Second Amendment come from? From the Founding Fathers. It's the Constitution. Well, yeah, I know that, but where did the whole concept come from? It came from Jesus. When he said to his disciples, now, if you don't have a sword, sell your cloak and buy one. I don't know if he, now I'd have to look that up, actually. Yeah, the disciples did carry swords, they did, but they were instructed that if they went into a city and they weren't receptive to the gospel, to just shake the dust off their feet and continue on. They weren't told to kill them. All right. I know everyone says that was okay. Yeah, I know that everybody says that was a metaphor. It was not a metaphor. He was saying, in building my kingdom, you're going to have to fight at times. You won't build my kingdom with a sword, but you're going to have to defend yourself. And that was the beginning of the Second Amendment. That's where the whole thing came from. And the sword today is an AR-15. So if you don't have one, go get one. You're supposed to have one. It's biblical. Now, I'm not against guns at all. Not against guns at all. Now, unfortunately, where I'm living right now, can't have one, but I would, if I was in the States, I would have a gun because I'm single and a female, and yeah. But he's taken it to a whole nother level. As a hardcore Dominionist, Boykin is recruiting warriors to fight and establish God's kingdom on earth through armed sectarian violence. As a Dominionist, Boykin's words are neither rhetoric nor are they mere saber rattling. He actually believes that his mandate as a believer is to gain control over the governments of the world, including the government of the United States. This is why he and other Dominionists cast the war on terror in terms of a holy war. Rest assured, God is not American, and our enemies are not his enemies. A lot of times we do act as if God is an American. I mean, and I'm speaking as someone that lived there for a very long time and will return back there, hopefully soon. I lost my thought for a second. Yeah. So many people think, oh, God is for America, and God is, fighting for America and all this. Well, you know what? God doesn't have favorites. Like, he does not have favorites. We're not his, his golden child here, just because we're American or whatever. He does not look at things the way we do. So, our enemies are not necessarily God's enemies, is what I'm saying. All right. Yeah. He does actually believe this. And rest assured, God is not American and our enemies are not his enemies. Do you really think God is angrier at the Muslims than he is at America, who has flooded the earth with violence and pornography and killed more than 57 million unborn children? Really? Look, I believe the Bible. I believe that Jesus is the way, the truth, and the light, and that no man comes to the Father except through him. However, he gives the same opportunity for salvation to all. He does not love the Muslim less. We are to pray for and love our Muslim neighbors, and as far as it depends on us, live in peace with all men. We are commanded by Scripture to overcome evil with good. We have not done that. We have instead tried to overcome evil with evil, and in the end have become monsters ourselves. The Dominionists would have us believe that we are still living in the Old Testament, waging wars against the enemies of God, like Israel of old. However, Christians need to imitate Christ, who suffered an agonizing and humiliating death out of love for his enemies. Blessed are the peacemakers, for they shall be called the sons of God. Matthew 5:9. But love your enemies and do good and lend, expecting nothing in return, and your reward will be great, and you will be sons of the Most High, for he is kind to the ungrateful and the evil. That is Luke 6:35. And I realize that we can't always live peaceably with Muslims. I understand that. Certainly not radicalized Muslims, but so far as it depends on us, we should live peaceably whenever possible. That doesn't mean we shouldn't protect ourselves if someone's breaking in your house and they're going to kill you, but little balance. The problem with believing that God is using the church to set up God's kingdom on earth is that the focus shifts from winning souls to gaining political power and might needed to gain power. The church gains a crusader mentality bent on bloodshed and conquest, and the military-industrial complex is glorified as an extension of justice. Alarmingly, recruiting soldiers to set up Dominionist rule is the real purpose of Boykin's 501c3 charity. Of course, Boykin is certainly not the only one calling for an army to defeat the enemies of God. Joyner has openly called for a military coup in America. And I believe this is a quote by Joyner, and we are coming to the end here. So, yeah. So, I mean, there's no way, this is Rick Joyner talking, I mean, there's no way our republic can last much longer. It may not last through Obama's second term. There are a lot of people that feel, it can't. There are forces right now seeking to undermine and to destroy the republic. There's almost a glib and almost a joyful disregard of the Constitution and a belittling of the Constitution. We can't make it without that. That's our foundation, our moorings. We're headed for serious tyranny. Now, I agree with him there. Absolutely. I think we've been used in some wonderful and powerful ways by God. We've been one of the most generous nations in history. We've done so much good, and I would add, so much evil. And now, I love the United States, but the United States is a warmongering country. It is. Anyway, yeah, please, sorry. I think we've been used in some wonderful and powerful ways by God. We've been one of the most generous nations in history. That is true. We've done so much good, and that's why I appeal to the Lord. Don't let us be totally destroyed. Please raise up those who will save us. And as I start telling friends from a long time that no election's going to get the right person in there that can restore us, because the system is so broken, so undermined right now, the whole system. I believe our only hope is a military takeover. Now, when he said this was pretty controversial, and it still is. I don't think that I think he needs to be very careful about calling for a military coup. But We cannot continue to dismiss Dominionism as the radical views of a few Christian extremists. I think many who have neither experienced this nor sat under Dominionist teaching might be tempted to shrug it off. After all, it sounds ludicrous and conspiratorial. Well, hello, it is ludicrous and conspiratorial, but it's also real. Even the secular media is standing up and taking notice now, while many Christians continue to slumber and deny its danger. It is a cancer, and it is metastasized into the military, the Republican Party, and the church at large. I beg you to wake up. A pastor speaking at the spiritual warfare conference held at Joyner's MorningStar Church claimed that Jesus was not going to come back until God could see that the church was a mature, overcoming bride operating at the same level as Jesus. Then Christ will return and Christians will work with Jesus to rule and reign. Later, Wyatt said that we are to rule, reign, govern, expand, advance, and establish the government of God on earth, since this is about world domination. Not surprisingly, he called on followers to infiltrate the 7 mountains of influence, especially the mountains of government, to attain preparatory dominion. This is what this group of would-be knights is working toward, a total takeover. And if you are laughing right now inside thinking, oh yeah, right. Oh my gosh, you wouldn't believe how far they've gotten into the Republican Party, how far they're into the military, and how far they've got people in strategic positions everywhere. I could name some, but I won't, because I mean, I can prove Joyner because of his own writings. I can research and prove that what he believes. I've sat under him, but some of these other people, I don't know. I know it's true, but I'm not sure if I could get significant enough research into it to protect myself from being sued. So that's why. I'm sorry. Yeah, this is what this group of would-be knights is working toward, a total takeover. However, I am certain they could support one another's Dominionist charities and pal around together, drinking cocktails and smoking cigars without forming their own order, playing adult dress-up and knighting each other with swords. So what gives? Certainly Joyner, even though his group is unrecognized, wants to be associated with the real Knights of Malta. But why? Is it for recognition or prestige? Is it so people can feel a sense of legitimacy in giving? Does it act as a front for other activities like money laundering? I honestly don't know. In a litigation case between the real sovereign military order of Malta and Papanokoulou's self-styled Florida Priory, the district court wrote that although it understood that the parties presented themselves as Christian charities, it struggled with the parties characterizing themselves in that manner. The district court attributed this confusion to the unimpressive amount of money each group raised for charitable purposes, which led the court to believe that the members of both organizations were more interested in dressing up in costumes, conferring titles on each other, and in playing weird world of princes and knights than in performing charitable acts. If this is true, that the amount of money raised for charities by both Papanokoulou's self-styled ecumenical order and by the Catholic Knights of Malta order is unimpressive, then what is the purpose? The Catholic order does have considerable clout. After all, they have their own passports and have been given observer status in the United Nations. However, Papanokoulou's group has no such privilege. If the amount this group has raised for charity is unimpressive, as the Florida court determined, then what are they doing? Does this group have some other purpose? Having descended from a group that was well known as an intelligent front, are they too being used for this purpose? And we're going to get into that because the next chapter will be CIA. And you better believe they were involved. You better believe. So that's going to be it for today anyway. And how many more chapters do we have here? Let me see. That's a small chapter. Yeah, so actually, really, 2 more chapters. Now, I've got a lot more information to give you guys, you know, outside of my book, because obviously I didn't write everything down there that happened to me, and for good reason. One is it's taken me a very long time to recover from all this spiritually, and to find the truth, and sometimes going back and revisiting some of the paranormal stuff that happened is difficult for me. It's difficult. So, but I will, if you guys want me to, and think that it would be helpful to you or others that are in this group, this, you know, I'd be happy to. There's a lot more information that I have, because I'm actually surprised when I'm reading through this book how much more information I have now. I could actually do a follow-up to this book. I should, maybe. So that's going to be it for this chapter anyway. I hope that you guys are finding this interesting, enjoying it, learning something. That's my hope anyway. So I love you guys, and I will see you in the next video. Good night, guys.